Okay, today we're going to learn Shabbat Daf Samach Gimel. Today's shir is sponsored in memory of Edwin Gilberg, Easter Ben Menachem Mendel, the Shenka Sarah, Zichrono Livracha by Judy and David Gilberg, and in memory of Yosef Flesh Ben Miriam and Yitzchak Zichrono Livracha by Nava Flesh. We're going to start now. I just want to review the structure of the Mishnayot that we learned so far in this parak. We started with women. We went women, men, women, men. Okay, we started with women, what they can't go out with from rabbinic law, then men, then women that they can't go out from on a Doraita level, on a Torah level. Then now we're going to men today. That's what we're going to get to. Tomorrow's daf is going to start with what items women can go out with, okay? Things that we're allowed, and then men, okay? That's going to be the structure. So, lo yitzeh ish lo b'sayif v'lo b'kesher. We're starting from the Mishnah 7 lines from the top. Lo yitzeh ish lo b'sayif v'lo b'kesher. He can't go out with a sword, nor with a bow. Okay, we're now getting into, right, if the women, it was all about their jewelry. The men, it's all about their weapons. That's what men like to go out with. So the question is going to be, how do we view weapons? Are weapons, again, a masoy, something you don't normally go out with? Or, to a certain extent, weapons were the way they dressed, and it was their type of jewelry. So we're going to see a debate about this in our Mishnah. So a man can't go out not with his sword, not with his bow, lo b'tris, not with his shield, v'lo ba'ala, we'll have to see what an ala is, we don't yet know, v'lo ba'romach, and not with a spear. V'im yatsa chayav chatat, and if he goes out, so it's a asur midoraita. Clearly the rabbis look at this as this is something you're carrying for purposes of war, it's not an ornament. Rabbi Eliezer omer, tachshitin hen lo. Rabbi Eliezer says, what are you talking about? This is the jewelry that men wear. The Chachamim Omrim, the rabbis say, how could you possibly say that? Einan elel l'genai. What do you mean? Weapons were used for purposes of bad things. How do we know? And it's certainly not jewelry. People don't want to go out. It's not exciting for them to wear this. Shnei Amar says in one of these positive nivuot about what's going to be in the future in Yeshayahu, v'chititu chavotam le'itim v'chanitotam lemazmerot. Right? They're going to break down. Their weapons are going to turn into agricultural tools. Right? There's not going to be any wars, and this is talking about in the future, and they won't need any weapons. So obviously, if they're not going to have weapons, then they're not using them they won't be dressing up nicely wearing jewelry if there won't be any weapons anymore. So therefore, you see that this is really a negative thing, and it's only used if you have to, and they certainly don't want to be wearing them. So therefore, Chachamim say we're going to stick to our opinion. Now the Mishnah, it's a little bit strange. The Mishnah now starts with women again and talks about the garter that we mentioned before. Birit tehora v'yotzim ba b'Shabbat, kvalim tmeim ve'en yotzim ba b'Shabbat. So a garter, remember that was the piece that held up their socks or their stockings. That is tehora. If you remember, it's not considered a kli. We'll get to why later. And yotzim ba b'Shabbat, you can walk out on Shabbat because we're not worried she's going to show her friend because she wouldn't pick up her skirt, right, to show her friend. Kvalim tmeim, but the kvalim, which are like chains, which we're going to see exactly what this is, are considered a utensil, a kli, so they are susceptible to impurities. Ve'ein yotzim b'hem b'Shabbat, but you can't walk with these on Shabbat. We're going to have to see what's the difference between these two. We'll get back to them much later on in the daf today. Today we're going to get off on a very long tangent in the middle of our sugya, and then we're going to get back to that part of the Mishnah after. My ba'ala. So the first question of the Gemara is, what is this Allah that we were talking about before? Kulfa. Okay, it's a club, basically. Okay, another weapon. Rabbi Eliezer omer tachshitin hinlo. Now the Gemara really wants to deal with this interesting opinion about Rabbi Eliezer that weapons are jewelry. Tanya. So now we're going to see, there was a discussion in our Mishnah, but a very short discussion. It was really the rabbis knocking Rabbi Eliezer's opinion. But we didn't really hear what Rabbi Eliezer had to say. So here we're going to have more of a detailed version in the Braita. Tanya, Amru lo l'Rabbi Eliezer. If they're really jewelry, then why won't there be weapons anymore in the future, in the time of the Mashiach? So the same kind of question as our Mishnah, just worded a little differently. Amar lahen, lefi she'enan tzrichin, shene'amar lo yisa goy el goy cherev. What are they saying, basically? Well, weapons are jewelry when there's fighting going on. When there's no fighting, lo yisa goy el goy cherev, there's not going to be any wars. Once there's no wars, well, then the weapons are no longer jewelry. Okay, here he gives an interesting analogy. He says, "V'tavi l'noi ba'alma," right? And then So then the Gemara asks, so fine, there won't be any wars. But if you're going to basically say that weapons are jewelry, so even in a time when there's not a war, why don't they just walk around as if it's jewelry? If no one's going to be wearing them anymore, it doesn't make any sense what you're saying. So in other words, the fact that they're not wearing them shows they're not weapons, even though there won't be wars anymore. So Amar Abaye, no. It makes a lot of sense what Rabbi Eliezer is saying. Midi dahavi astraga b'tiara. And this comes up a lot of times. We saw this in the past, which is you wouldn't light a candle in the middle of the day, right? Candles are very decorative. They're very nice. But when do you light them? You light them when it's dark out and when you can actually see them. So weapons are only going to be considered jewelry when you need them. When there's no wars going on and you're not fighting and nobody uses weapons, well, then weapons aren't, right? You think about those Romans and when they had those wars, that was like a whole nice, they would dress up in the armor and it was all, nowadays, nobody fights like that. So nobody ever uses that. So nobody would walk around in that saying, this is my jewelry. Okay. But when that was being used all the time, then that would be their jewelry, so to speak. Okay. So that's Rabbi Eliezer opinion that it's time sensitive, right? It's depending on what's going on, and that would determine, so it is jewelry, even though in the future there won't be any weapons. Now they're going to say this whole approach of the Braita goes against something Shmuel says. Pliga de Shmuel. Damar Shmuel, ein ben ha'olam hazeh li'imot HaMashiach, ela she'yabu galiyot bilvad, shene'amar ki lo yichdal avion mikerev ha'aretz. Right? This is a very famous debate about what's going to be in the future. That there's no difference between Olam Hazeh and Yemot Mashiach, but in other words, there will be wars, there will be poverty, the world's not going to be a utopian world exactly. The only difference is that we will be our own bosses, right? We'll have ribonut, as we say, we'll have sovereignty. Okay, that's the only difference, which means that Shmuel believed that there would be wars in the future and there would be weapons needed, whereas Rabbi Eliezer and Chachamim both agree that there won't be. Okay, so now this is another interesting example, like we had the other day with the shoes. If you remember with the shoes, we have Rabbi Yochanan disagreed with the Braita, and we kind of said, oh, well, there's Rabbi Yochanan and there's the Braita, right? Left shoe or right shoe, and they kind of work them out together, even though generally Amoraim can't disagree with Tanaim. Here also, here's a Tanaitic debate, which all holds by the same idea, and then Shmuel has a different idea. So how could that be? So one could say that these are not exactly halachic issues. And because they're out of the realm of halachic issues, theoretically, Amoraim could have their own opinions against Tanaitic opinions. Because the Gemara doesn't seem to take issue with the fact that Shmuel is disagreeing with the Braita. Okay, and a Mishnah. So now they're going to say, Misayeh le'le Rabbi Chia bar Abba. The Braita disagrees with Shmuel, but supports what Rabbi Chia bar Abba says. Because he said, Am Rabbi Chia bar Abba, all those beautiful prophecies we see, that's all about the times of Mashiach, when there won't be wars and everything will be ideal. But they're not talking about Olam Haba. Olam Haba, right, the world to come, Ayin lo rata, Elohim zulatcha. Nobody even knows what that is. The prophecies don't talk about that because no one has any clue what's going to be. So all the things we see are about Yemot HaMashiach, which means Yemot HaMashiach really will be this idyllic time, and it won't be just that we'll be in charge of our own destiny, or there won't be Shibu Galiyot. The Rambam actually calls it Shibu Malchuyot, right? That there won't be other kingdoms ruling us, and therefore, that is the same opinion he has as our Mishnah. The Ika Da'amrei. Okay, now we're going to go back to the beginning of the Sugya and reread it, because now we're going to have a different version. Ika Da'amrei, some people say, Hamrulo le Rabbi Eliezer. The rabbi said to Rabbi Eliezer, starting from the beginning again, same exact question. Amar lehen, af liyemot HaMashiach einam b'telin. In this version, Rabbi Eliezer's answer is exactly what Shmuel said, which is, what do you mean? There will be weapons in the future. Okay, there is no cancellation of weapons down the road. There will always be weapons. Hainu de Shmuel, and that matches Shmuel. And now we don't have any issue that Shmuel disagrees with the Tanaitic opinion because he fits in perfectly with Rabbi Eliezer. Upliga de Rabbi Chia bar Abba, but he disagrees, right? He would be opposite of Rabbi Chia bar Abba because Rabbi Chia bar Abba was the one who said that it will be idyllic and there won't be wars at all. Okay, so these are different approaches about what's going to be in Yemot HaMashiach, and how that affects how we view weapons, right? Our weapons, could they be viewed as jewelry or not? Amalei Abai the Rav Dimi. Okay, now we're going to have a bit of a confusing about who exactly said this. We're going to have a lot of possibilities. Either Abai said to Rav Dimi, Va'amri la Rav Avia, or Abaye said to Rav Avia, or Va'amri la Rav Yosef le Rav Dimi, or it wasn't Abaye who said to Rav Dimi, it was Rav Yosef, or Amri la Rav Avia. So let's put it in simpler terms. Either Abaye said to Rav Dimi or Rav Avia, or Rav Dimi said to, or Rav Yosef said to Rav Dimi or Rav Avia, or third option, Va'amri la Abaye le Rav Yosef, or Abaye said directly to Rav Yosef. Okay, so we don't know who said what to who, but here's what they said. My time de Rabbi Eliezer, de Amar Tachshitin Henlo. Where does he get this from? Dichtiv, he gets it from a pasuk. Okay, it's a pasuk from Tehillim, and it says, Chagor charbacha al yerech, gibor hodcha v'hadrecha. Okay, put on your sword on your, on your leg, on your thigh. You gibor, strong person. Hodcha v'hadrecha. That is your glory and splendor. What do you see here? That's where he gets it. These are your weapons. Okay, now from here, it's going to get us off on our tangent because Amalei Rav Kahana Lamar Berej Rav Huna, Hai B'divrei Torah Ktiv. So Rav Kahana says to him, what are you talking about? That said about Torah. It wasn't really talking about a sword, and your sword is your splendor and your glory. No, it's talking about Divrei Torah, that pasuk. I always learned that. That's what they taught me in school, right? That it was about Torah, that your Torah is your cherev, it's your protection, and that's your splendor and your glory. So what's his reaction? Mar Berej Rav Huna answers him, Amar lo, ein mikra yotzei midei pshuto. Even though it's true, that's how we darshan it, but you can still, even though you have a drasha and a pasuk, you can still always read it by the simple meaning. And the simple meaning is that a sword functions as your glory and splendor, and that's the proof of Rabbi Eliezer. But Amar Rav Kahana now has an interesting line, okay? Kadhavina bartimne srei shnim. Okay, when I was 18 years old, and I had already learned all of Shas. Okay, now, first of all, Shas was a little smaller in his day. Okay, right? We didn't have everything. Everything wasn't written. It wasn't as long as it is now. But anyway, it was still a huge feat that he did this by the time he was 18. But I didn't know this idea that you have to understand the pasuk kipshuto even, right? Even if you have a drasha, you can still understand it according to the pshat until right at this moment. This, by the way, is like Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah who says, Harani kiven shivim shana. He was also 18, right? 18 is this, right? This crossing point, this important, right? We all view 18 as this, wow, you turned 18, right? It's a big deal. You can see in the times of the Gemara also 18 was a big deal. He says, I was 18 and I had learned everything and I still didn't know this until this very day. So now they say, my kamash malam, what's he trying to teach you? And here comes the big advertising for the best marketing line for Daf Yomi, if you're ready. Okay, so what does he say? What does this teach you? Why is he telling you this? Deligmar inish v'hadar lispar. It's important to learn everything, even if you don't necessarily understand everything. And ultimately, you'll understand it, right? You start learning, don't worry that you don't understand everything, right? I didn't understand this. I learned all of Shas, still didn't understand it, but now I understand. Okay, so there's hope for those who feel like I don't get everything, I don't understand everything, right? There's hope, and you can, there's always what to do. Okay, so you can always learn more. From here, we're going to get into a whole big tangent. We quoted this pasuk about the Gibor and his Hod Vahadal, and we said that we darshan it about Divrei Torah. And now we're going to see the next pasuk. Okay, the next pasuk says there, it ended with the Hadarcha, okay, your glory. Now it says, V'hadarchat slach rechav al dvar emet. Okay, your hadar, with this you will succeed. Slach lakatzlacha. Rechav al dvar emet, ride on words of truth. V'anvat tzedek, okay, anvat from the wording of anav, to be humble, and tzedek, righteousness. V'torcha noraot yiminecha. Okay, we don't know exactly what this means. We're going to get back to this, and we're going to darshan this. Okay. So now here comes a slew of drashot. Siman Zaut, it's a very strange siman. It seems Zion is Rabbi Elazar, we're going to see. Reish is Rish Lakish. And then Vav Taf is not Vav and Taf, but it's Vit Talmidav, okay, or Talmidehem, and their students. So we're going to have a few statements of Rabbi Elazar and Rish Lakish that are passed on by their students, and that's the siman. Amar Rabbi Yirmiyah, Amar Rabbi Elazar. Shnei Talmidei Chachamim HaMechadedim Ze Lezeh B'Halacha. Okay, we're now going to have a whole bunch of statements about two Talmidei Chachamim that do the following. This will happen to them, okay? If you learn in the proper way, you will have a lot of success in a particular way. So if you sharpen each other b'halacha, that's usually by asking questions and questioning, right? That's the best thing about a chavruta. You kind of push people on issues to sharpen their thinking. Hakadosh Baruch Hu matzliach lehem. God helps you succeed. Shneimar v'hadarcha tzlach. Okay, but because it says hadarcha tzlach, so al tikre v'hadarcha ela v'chadedcha. Often they switch the hey and the chet. It means you're sharpening. If you sharpen things, then slach, then you'll succeed. God will help you succeed. The Lord ela she'olim l'gdula. Not only that, but you rise to greatness. Shenemar slach rechav, right? Rechav means you go even farther, right? You drive on. Okay, so saying you'll really succeed. Talmud yachol afilu shelo lishma. Maybe if you do this not lishma, not for the right reasons, would you also succeed? No. Talmud lomar al dvar emet. They say emet is the opposite of shelo lishma. You're searching for truth. If you're searching for truth, then you'll succeed. If you're mechadidim zalazeh, if you're searching for other things like your own glory, well, then you won't. Yachol im higis da'ato. What if he gets arrogant from this? Talmud lomar va'anvat tzedek. Only if he stays humble. If he gets arrogant, then it also won't help. These are, again, we've seen this many times. They always talk about all the dangers inherent in learning and being knowledgeable, that you'll be arrogant, that you'll do it for your own sake and not for the shema, for the right reasons. Now they're going to darshan on the very end, which said, that's what they're saying. Torah is your Torah. Shenitna biyamin, that was given with yad yamin. We saw the whole thing about yamin the other day. Shene'emar v'torcha noraot yamincha. Rav Nachman Yitzchak Omer Amar zochim dvarim shene'emru biyamina shel Torah. You're going to be zoche to have things that were said with the strength of Torah. The yamincha means the strength. Amar Rav Baruch Shila v'Amar Amar Rav Yosef Barchama Amar Rav Sheshet Mai dichtiv orech yamim biyamina b'smola osher v'kavod. How do we understand this pasuk? This pasuk says, right, orech yamin, longevity will be in your yad yamin, and in your small will be osher v'kavod, wealth and glory. So there's a problem with this pasuk. Ela b'yamina orech yamin ika osher v'kavod leika. The yamin is always the best. What, you're going to get only longevity? You're not going to get osher and kavod? Seems like you should get, right? What does yamin mean? What they're going to say is yamin is if you do things strongly with your yad yamin. If you do things weakly with your yad small, that's different. So if you do things weakly, you'll get osher v'kavod. If you do things strong in the right way, you'll end up with longevity. So seems weird. You should get longevity and osher and kavod. So what does the Gemara answer? Ela l'mayminin ba, if you use all your strength to learn, orech yamim ika b'kol sheken osher v'kavod. You're going to get both, actually. L'masmilim, but those who go with the left, meaning not so, they don't put so much effort into it. Osher v'kavod ika, you'll get osher and kavod, but orech yamim leika, but you won't get longevity. Amar of Yirmiyah, Amar of Shimon ben Lakish. Next line about, we started with Shnei Talmidei Chachamim ha-mechadedim ze lezeh b'halacha. Now we're going to have Shnei Talmidei Chachamim ha-nochin ze lezeh b'halacha. Right? We've talked about rabbis who fight with each other. Remember, there was all this inner fighting. This is the opposite, right? We've had mansichim ze lezeh. They fight against each other. Interesting that they're talking about this in the context of klei neshek and weapons, right? And here we're saying don't use weapons in the world of Torah, right? That's not the right place. You should be nochin ze lezeh b'halacha. Speak nicely to each other. Hakadosh Baruch Hu makshiv lahen. If you speak nicely to each other, then God will listen to you. Shnei Amar, where do we get this from? Az nidberu yirei Hashem. Okay, it's a pasuk from Malachi. I'm going to read the whole pasuk. Az nidberu yirei Hashem. Okay, they spoke. Yirei Hashem spoke to each other. Ish et re'eu, one to the other. Vayakshev Hashem v'yishman. God listened. Okay, I'm going to just read you the end. V'katev sefer zikaron lefanav, and it will be written down in the book that records things, to those who fear him and those who choshvei shmo. We're going to have to understand what is choshvei shmo. So first, they're going to talk about Az nidberu yirei Hashem, ein dibor ela nachat. How do we know that dibor is nachat? Because it says yadber amim tachtenu. This, by the way, is also a pasuk about war, that the enemies will surrender to you. Surrender is lashon of nachat, okay, of peacefully. My ulechoshvei shemo. So that's how we get nidberu yirei Hashem, is they speak benachat to each other. Then vayakshev Hashem v'yishma, God will listen to you. And then what's this lechoshvei shemo? Here's a good line. Amar Rabbi Ami afilu chishev la'asat mitzvah v'ne'enas v'lo asa'a ma'aleh alav ha'katuv ki'ilu asa'a. If you intended to do a mitzvah and then something happened and you couldn't do it, well, guess what? It's as if you did it. That's what it means lechoshvei shemo. This, by the way, is very relevant. We keep talking about it. The importance of intent. right? This is one of the themes we keep coming up with about the ideas of intent. Okay. By the way, Julie pointed out after class yesterday something very good, that when I was talking about the jewelry and how it can be used for the right reason or not, right? She also pointed out that it was all about kavanah and how it's the same idea here. A ma'aseh of putting jewelry on could be thought of differently, whether you have intent to do depends on what your intent is. It's the same idea as what we've been learning in Masechet Shabbat about davar she'eino mitkaveh, malacha she'eina tzricha legufah. It all depends on what your intent is. You could do the exact same act or the same result could happen, but the meaning is very different depending on what you were intending. Amar Rav Chanina bar Idi, kol ha'oseh mitzvah k'ma'amara ein mevasrin oto b'sorot ra'ot. Okay, continuing in this theme of doing things right, if you do a mitzvah the way you're supposed to, then you won't have bad news, right? Bad tidings won't come your way. Shene'amar shomer mitzvah lo yeda davar ra. Okay, nothing bad will happen. Obviously, it raises questions. What about tzaddik v'ra? Okay, this is again the rabbi's way of encouraging people. It's not like this is necessarily 100% formula going to work, but it was a way of encouraging people. Amar Rav Asi v'itema Rabbi Chanina. Afilu HaKadosh Baruch Hu gozer gzera hu mevatla. If you do mitzvot and God said he's going to do something bad, he could change his mind. Okay, we talked about this a few dapim ago, about God changing, right? That God, if promises something good, God won't change his mind. But if he promises something bad, he will. However, we saw that one unique case that if you don't rebuke people, then even then God would change a promise for good for bad. But otherwise, no. Shene'emar. How do we know this? Because the Dvar Melech is shilton, meaning it's said and done. So how can anybody say to him, what are you going to do? Meaning you can't, once the king says he's going to do something, which is a reference to God here, you can't just start saying, well, I don't agree. But then it says, or can you? It's kind of a question. Can you say mataseh? And then it says, samichle shomer mitzvah lo yeda davar ra. Someone who does a mitzvah won't know davar ra, as if that's answering the question, meaning there's only one person who can say to God, what are you doing? And that's someone who does a mitzvah. And he can go to God and say, what are you doing? And God could theoretically change what he promised. He's going to do something bad to something good. Amar Rabbi Abba, Amar Rabbi Shimon ben Lakish. Shnei talmidei chachamim hamakshivim ze lezeh b'halacha. Okay, we had mechadidim, sharpen each other. We had nochim, they speak nicely. Here we have makshivim ze lezeh. This is almost the next step. You really have to listen, right? You could speak nicely, but you might not necessarily be listening to the other. But listening is very critical. HaKadosh Baruch Hu shomea lekolam. God listens to their voice. Okay, now, before we already said, God will listen. Listening is different from, by shomea lekolam means he'll answer their prayers. Shneimar, hayoshevet baganim, we're now quoting from Shir HaShirim. Hayoshevet baganim, that's baganim in the gardens, what they mean is in the Batei Midrash. Chaverim makshivim lekolecha hashmieni. Okay, the chaverim are listening to the chaverim are the Talmidei Chachamim that are makshivim to each other. Hashmieni, then God will come and listen. V'im enosim came gormin l'shchina shemishtaleket Israel. It's very dangerous because if you don't do that, then the Shechina is going to leave. The divine presence. Shene'emar, because the next specific is Brach Dodiyu Domei Lecha L'Tzvi. That's the whole theme of Shir HaShirim, right? God is close and then God is distant. Amar Rabbi Abba, Amar Rabbi Shimon ben Lakish. Next one. Shnei Talmidei Chachamim hamadgilim ze lezeh b'halacha. HaKadosh Baruch Hu ohavan. God loves you if you're madgilim. What exactly is madgilim? Different interpretations. I'll go with Rashi. Rashi says, you come to the lashon of a degel. What happens when you put up a degel? Everybody crowds around the degel. So people gather together, but Rashi adds something based on what the Gemara is going to say in the continuation, that they say, let's learn together and we'll figure it out on our own without a rabbi. Okay, so theoretically this is a bit dangerous and we'll see, but if you do this, God loves you. Shene'emar v'tiglu alai hava, connection between degel, the root daled gimel lamed, and ahava. Amarava v'hu diyadei surata dishmata. This is at least if you know what you're talking about, and you have to be knowledgeable to do this. And v'hu delete rabba b'mata. And it's only if there's no rabbi in the city, and as we allow this, when there's no rabbi. When there is a rabbi, well then you should live with your rabbi. You shouldn't try to figure everything out on your own. L'migmar mineh, learn from him. Amar Rabbi Amma, Rabbi Shimon ben Lakish. Gadol hamalveh. Okay, because we had statements by Rabbi Abba in the name of Rish Lakish, now we're getting off on a tangent. We're off of the Torah theme. We're now talking about other things that he also said of importance. Gadol hamalveh yoter min ha'oseh tzedakah. Okay, better to give, if you want to give tzedakah, the best way to do it is loan somebody money. Umatil b'kis yoter mikulam. And if you invest with someone, even better than that, right? That's the best way to really help someone who's impoverished. Amar Rabbi Amma, Rabbi Shimon ben Lakish, im talmid chacham noken v'noter kenachash, hu chagreu al ma'mecha. Imanu aretz hu chasid, imu aretz hu chasid, al tidor b'shchunato. It's a very troubling line. It says, if you have a Talmid Chacham who revenges people and isn't the right personality, like a snake, well, wear him on your loins. Or, put him on your loins. If he's an Am Haaretz, but he's a Chassid and he has good deeds, don't dwell among him. Okay? Now this is strange. You would think, what do we always say? The Maaseh is what's important, right? It's not the whole point of learning. If you've been learning Pirkei Avot now, right? A lot of people learn it between Pesach and Shavuot, or if you just remembered, it's all about, right? Learning is only important if you're going to do Maasim, and we'll even see that later in the Gemara. This seems to contradict that. However, many of the Mefarshim explain that what does this mean? Well, ultimately, because he's learning, he will go in the right way, and because the Am Haaretz isn't learning, he'll turn bad. So even though right now you see them as where they are, they're each going to go their other ways. Again, it's a good question. I don't have a good answer to it, but that's the best I could find. Amar Rav Kahana, Amar Rabbi Shimon ben Lakish. Va'amar la Amar Rav Asi, Amar Rabbi Shimon ben Lakish. Va'amar la Amar Rabbi Abba, Amar Rabbi Shimon ben Lakish. Okay, another statement that was maybe said in the name of Rabbi Abba and the name of Rabbi Lakish, which is why it's brought here. If you have a bad dog, okay, you're basically preventing chesed. Why are you preventing chesed? Well, imagine, right? Someone wants to come to your door to ask for money. They see a huge dog. They're staying far away. Okay, so wait till we get to our story. Shene'amar lemas mere'eu chesed. Okay, this is a pasuk from Eov. Okay, the whole pasuk reads lemas mere'eu chesed v'yirat Shaddai ta'azov. Okay, and he'll leave fear of God. We'll get to this in a minute. Lamas, they say, shekein lashon yivanit kolim lekelev lamas. Okay, lamas in Greek is dog, and therefore, lamas mere'eu chesed, lamas meaning you have a dog, it prevents your friend from doing chesed to a friend. Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak amar, af porek mimenu yirat shamayim. It even causes people to stop fearing God, as the end of that pasuk says, shene'amar birat Shaddai ta'azov. Okay, so by the way, the Gemara in general was very against dogs. Here they specifically call it a bad dog, so maybe one can distinguish, but in general, the Gemara is very against dogs, just so you know. Okay, here we get a story. Okay, if you weren't convinced yet, here's our story that's going to kind of shock you and say, this is how bad a bad dog can go, how far it can go. There was a woman who went to someone's house to bake. Okay, there were oftentimes, they didn't have their own ovens. They went to their friend's house to bake. Navach ba kalva, the dog started barking at her. It aker vlada, and she miscarried. Amarla mari debeta, so the head of the house sees her, he doesn't realize she miscarried, but he sees her going crazy. He says to her, lo tidchale, don't be scared. De shakile nive, b'shakilan torfe. I already removed his sharp teeth and I took out his sharp paws, so you have nothing to worry about. So here's her response to him. Amrele, right? These women often have these witty comebacks. Shkola tivuta v'shadya achisri. Take back the good that you did and throw it to the thorns. Okay, it's useless because kfar nad vlad, because I already lost my child. Okay, very painful story. Again, they're trying to bring in the story to whether it happened or not is a whole different story, but right, they want to basically send across this message about not having bad dogs that scare people or might shock them. Amar Rav Huna. My dichtiv, smach bechor b'yaldutecha, v'yitivcha libecha b'imei becharutecha, v'halach b'darchei libecha b'mer'ei necha, v'dach yal kol ele v'yacha livim b'mishpat. Very troublesome pasuk in Kohelet. It's quoted in many places about saying, remember we talked about contradictions in Kohelet, and they wanted to take it out of the canonization. This is one of the psukim they say, because it says, right, you should be happy and do, kind of, it sounds like run wild and do whatever you want when you're young. Follow the ways of your heart, which is usually, right, lo tatur acharei levavchem. Don't follow the ways of your heart where it takes you. And mar'ei necha, right, it's the opposite of lo tatur acharei levavchem acharei nechem. Right here it says, follow your heart, follow your eyes, whatever you want. But then it says, but know that you're going to be brought to judgment for what you're doing. So what do they answer? First is, ad kan divrei yetzer hara, mikam va'elech divrei yetzer tov. It's like a conversation between the yetzer hara and the yetzer tov. One side of you is saying, oh, go do whatever you want. And then the other side is saying, wait a minute, you're going to be brought to judgment on this. That's one way. Rish Lakish amar, ad kan divrei Torah. Mikam va'elech lemasim tovim. After that whole thing about maasim aren't so important, here he comes and says this. Smach b'chor b'yaldutecha means love your learning. Get involved in your learning, follow your heart. Learn. But remember that I'll call Eli v'yachal b'mishpat. What's important? It's what you do that's important. I actually read an interesting Facebook post of someone yesterday. Rav Avram Stav, he wrote a post specifically about this. He said how many years ago it was his mother's 40th birthday, and he didn't come home. He was learning in yeshiva, and he thought it was so important to learn in yeshiva. And then he realizes now in hindsight that that was short-sighted, and basically that it's all about, the ma'asim and the family time. And, especially now, it's a good time when everyone's home and family time and the importance. And that's really very important also. And it's not all about learning, right? And it's interesting because, right, it's specifically this, Mach bechor b'yaldutecha. It's in your yaldut, right? You don't have understanding, you don't have perspective, right? And try to remember what it's all about. And it's hard when you're younger, you don't really have that whole picture. Okay, moving on. So that's the end of that whole sugya. We got off on this big tangent about the importance of learning Torah and how to learn Torah. As someone pointed out here, it's very appropriate before Lag BaOmer, right? The whole idea of, and why is the whole theme of Lag BaOmer? This all comes from, you have to remember the context. What was going on there, the rabbis are being critical of what was happening in their own Batei Midrash. And in fact, this happens more in the Bavli than in the Yerushalmi, because in the Babylonian academies, there were a lot of tensions and a lot of fighting and a lot of arrogance. And this is a big theme in the Bavli, always trying to go back to these ideas that when you're learning Torah, you have to keep everything in the right framework, do it in the right way. It's not all an intellectual exercise to, try to show I'm smarter than you and all that. But there's much more to it, both in ma'asim and in how you speak to others, how you're respectful of their opinions, etc. Okay, birit tehora. Now we're getting back to the Mishnah. What is this? This garter is tehora versus the kvalim, which are tmeim, and the birit you can wear on Shabbat, can go out with it, and the kvalim you cannot. So Amar Rav Yehuda, birit zo etzada. Birit is a bracelet. So Matav Rav Yosef, birit Torah v'yosaba b'Shabbat. But what do you mean? How can you say it's a bracelet? We say, but birit is not susceptible to impurity. And you could go out on Shabbat. V'ilu etzada tme'ahi. And a bracelet is tme'ah. Okay, you can't, right? First of all, you can't go out with it on Shabbat, and also it's susceptible to impurity. So what does he mean? He says, hachi kamar. This is what Rabbi Yehuda meant. Tachat etzada omedet. It works like a bracelet. And it's a bracelet that goes around your wrist. And this goes around, it's like a ring that goes around your thigh. Okay, and from that, there's something that attaches to your stockings or to your socks. Yativ Ravin v'Ravuna kamei Rav Yirmiyah. Okay, this is one of these cases where we're going to read this, forget it in a few minutes, and then we're going to come back to the beginning of the story. So I'll kind of tell you to focus on it and remember. Ravin, because it seems like a side point, but we're going to get back to it. Even so, it's still a side point in the whole story, but when we get to that later line, you'll want to remember this. Ravin and Rav Huna were sitting in front of Rav Yirmiyah. The yat of Rav Yirmiyah becoming amnim, and Rav Yirmiyah fell asleep. Okay, he dozed while they were all sitting learning with him. Right, this happens. There was this teacher when I was in high school who was a very elderly teacher, and he used to sometimes fall asleep in the middle of class. We'd pass by. He was never our teacher, but we'd pass by his class and we'd see him asleep, and the kids all in the class. Right, sometimes it happens. Teacher falls asleep, especially if he's a little elderly. The yativ Ravin bekamar, and Ravin starts talking now. So Rav Yirmiyah is asleep. And Ravin says, birit ba'achat kvalim b'shtayim. What's the difference between a birit and kvalim? So birit goes on one leg and kvalim go on two legs. Amalei Rav Huna, elu ve'elu b'shtayim. No, both are two, or on both legs. Umitilim shalshelet beinehem v'nasu kvalim. Okay, what's the kvalim? The kvalim is you have these rings that go around your leg, and the kvalim is this chain that attaches the two to each other. We'll see soon why they wore this. Why they had these chains that attach them together. It sounds almost like you're wearing, like in jail, and they have these chains attaching them, but this actually women would walk around wearing. So now they say, wait a minute. So let's try to fit this in. The birit goes around both legs and isn't susceptible to impurity, and the kvalim attaches them in some sort of chain, and it does accept impurity. So now the Gemara says, the fact that it has a chain, now it's going to be considered a kli. Why does that make it a kli and before it wasn't? And if you want to say, remember, if you want to say means we're going to reject it. If you want to suggest, like Rabbi Shmuel bar Nachmani, Rabbi Shmuel bar Nachmani, Rabbi Yochanan, minayin lemashmiya kol b'klei matachot shehu tamei. How do we know that if you make noise in metal implements that it will be susceptible to impurity? We saw this before. Shene'emar kol davar asher yavo ba'esh. And now we're going to start with issues of impurity. They're going to take us into tomorrow's daf, which is the psukim about the Miganim. If you remember, in the war of the Miganim, we keep going back to this. They took all sorts of things from them, including jewelry and other things. and they had to purify them. Why did they have to purify? Because a lot of people died in war and things were impure. So those verses relate to Tumat Meit. Keep that in mind. So now they say, we already learned from that pasuk, Kol davar al sheyavo ba'esh. Davar came to teach us afilu dibur b'mashma, even if it makes noise like speech. Okay, here it's not speech, it's sound, but it's sound. Speech is also sound. So there we learn that since that's the difference. The piece that goes around your thigh, that doesn't make any noise, but the chain makes noise. So if you want to say that's the reason, remember we started with an if you want to say. Bishla I understand there where we talked about it, kabao lalakala. Remember we talked about it for the millstone, it made noise, and for other things it made noise, and the noise was important. That's why we had the noise. The noise was important because the noise is important. It had a purpose. That's why it made it susceptible to impurity. But the noise, the chain is working to connect the two pieces. It's not because, yes, it's true, it makes noise, but you don't need the noise for anything. The noise isn't serving a purpose. Then the noise shouldn't theoretically, remember, what makes something susceptible to impurity has purpose. So if the purpose of this that makes it, it's not a utensil because it doesn't, right, it's just a chain. But because it serves a purpose of making noise, it would be, but this doesn't serve a purpose. So now they say, oh no, it does. Hachanami ka'avid maaseh. This is going to be a strange one. De'amar Rabba bar bar Chana amar Rabbi Yochanan. Mishpacha achat hayta b'Yerushalayim shayu psiotehen gasot. The women would take these long strides. They would run maybe all the time. V'hayu b'tolotehen noshrot. What happened? Because they ran, they'd fall and injure themselves, and they would tear their hymens. And people didn't like when women tore their hymen before getting married, because we'll get to this in Ketubot if you haven't learned it yet, but it's all about, when women get married, we want to know there's a different value for a woman if she's a virgin or not, and often they'll get married and the husband will say, what do you mean? You said you were a virgin, you're not, and there's all this concern about what she did in her past life, so to speak, and they wanted to have an indicator, is she really a virgin or not? So it wasn't a good thing if her hymen tore before a marriage. So therefore, what they do, so they put these chains on so that, first of all, it seems it'll be harder to run with these chains, and also it'll make a noise. It's like this thing. I remember someone once told me their kid was having issues wetting the bed, and they had this program that, I don't know if anyone knows this, but right, this program that a bell rings you up right when you feel like you need to. This bell goes off and wakes you up and reminds you. So again, there was the noise that would remind them, oh, don't run like that. Okay, and that was how they resolved it, which means that in the end, it does serve a purpose, the noise, and that's how we explain. Okay, I told you wouldn't remember this. Now, where we started with what is a birit and what is kfalim, and Rav Huna said first Ravin gave an answer, and then Rav Huna gave an answer, and Rav Yirmiyah was sleeping. Now, Itarbahu Rabbi Yirmiyah, he wakes up, Amar Lahu Yaisher, V'chein Amar Rabbi Yochanan. He says, oh, great. And that's what Rabbi Yochanan said. Now, it's a little unclear who's he referring to, because which one did he hear? Probably the second one. Probably not Ravin, probably Rav Huna, who said they both go on both legs, and the chain is just to connect. Kiyata Rav Dimi Amar Rabbi Yochanan. Now we're going to get into some other things that Rabbi Yochanan said about Tumah, and this is going to lead into tomorrow's daf. He said, Minayin la'arig kol shehu shu tameh. If you have an item that's woven, even if it's a very small piece of woven material, it's susceptible to impurity. How do we learn this? From the tzitz. Okay, what was the tzitz? The tzitz was this plate of gold that would go on the forehead of the Kohen. Okay, there's a nice picture of it in the Koran. I'll show you. Okay, so there's the tzitz. You can't really see it so well in the video, I don't think, but we're going to talk about in a minute the wording. Okay, so here at the bottom, it says at the bottom right, from if you're facing the tzitz, so it says Kodesh Lamed, which is, it's going to be Kodesh LaHashem, and on top in bigger letters is Yud Kei Vav Kei on the other side. Okay, so one side is right justified and one side is left justified. Okay, so the Hashem is a little bigger and a little higher, not in the same row. Okay, we're going to talk about this right now in a minute. So anyway, right now they're going to say we learn it from the tzitz. Now the tzitz wasn't woven, so what are we talking about? Well, if you see there, what I showed you, there was this blue part that it was attached to. That part was woven, and I don't know why it's blue here. I don't know if it was always blue, but maybe. And there was this plate of gold that was attached to the woven part. So they say from here, you see this was a very small piece of jewelry, right? Right, Julie's pointing out it's tchelet, right? I guess it's the tchelet, that makes sense. So they say, they learned it out from the tzitz. So Amalei Abai, the tzitz ariku. What do you mean? The tzitz wasn't woven. The Hatanya, it says in a Braita, tzitz can mean tas shel dahav. It was a plate of gold. Berochav shtei etzbaot. It was two fingers wide, right, which is not very wide. Umukaf me'ozen la'ozen. It went from ear to ear. Okay, so basically, right, from on your forehead. Now, it was a very small piece. That's why they tried to learn it from here. On the other hand, they say, but you can't learn it from here because it was made of gold. It wasn't woven. The katuv alav, and now we're just getting some details about it. They're quoting this Braita, and that's where I showed you the picture. Shnei shitin, it's written in 2 rows. Yud he lamala, the kodesh lamed lamata. Okay, so like I said, the yud ke was higher, and the kodesh le ha was, le was below. But Amar Rabbi Elazar, but Rabbi Yossi, but here we have a dissenting opinion. Ani ri'itiv be'ir Romi, v'katuv kodesh Lashem b'shita achat. I saw it in Rome because the Romans, they destroyed the Beit HaMikdash, took all our stuff. I actually saw it, and it actually had kodesh Lashem in 1 row. Okay, so there's a debate about how this goes. Okay, lahalacha we paskin that it's supposed to be in 1 row. It's supposed to be in 2 rows, but if it's in 1 row, since he testified that he actually saw one like this, then it's okay. Kiselik Rav Dimi Linahardam. Shalach lehu. Okay, so remember, we learn out that Ari Koshu is Tameh from the tzitz. And then he says, how could that be? The tzitz wasn't woven. So even though part of it, right, it was attached to a woven piece, but still it wasn't woven. So Shalach lehu, he sends back to him when Rav Dimi went to Nahardea, he sent back, I made a mistake, right? This is a good case of somebody saying, okay, I admit I made a mistake. This is what they said. I missed a part. Jewelry, any small piece of jewelry will be susceptible to impurity. We learned that from the tzitz because it was a small piece of jewelry and it was susceptible to impurity. And how about something woven? O beged, because it says o beged, right? Beged would be a cloth. O comes to include even something very small. Tanu Rabbanan, ari koshu tameh. Now we're going to have a braita about this. Something is woven, even a small amount will be susceptible to impurity. V'tachshit koshu tameh. That's just a repeat of what we said. Arig v'tachshit koshu. What if it's made up of both of them and there's really a teeny bit of each? Well, that's also tameh. Musaf sak ala beged shetameh mishum arig. And we're going to add another thing to the list, which is, okay, I'm not even going to explain this because it's going to be the first thing they're going to try to explain in tomorrow's daf, which is, what does this line mean? Musaf sak ala beged shetameh mishum arig. But that's the braita. Now, Amar Rava. So first they're going to talk about this arig. Arig kol shu tameh me o beged. Okay, that we learned from the words o beged. It comes up in the Shratzim. It says, I'll read the pasuk, and tomorrow we'll really see these inside. If a sheretz falls there, yitma mikol kli eitz o beged o or o sak. Remember, we keep going back to these verses. So it says there o beged. So that's what we learn arig kol shu. Tachshit kol shu tameh mitzitz, that we learned from the tzitz. Arig v'tachshit kol shu tameh. How do we know that both of them together? Well, we learn that again. Now we're jumping to, whenever we talk about Tum and Tara, we have verses about sheretz. We have verses about the Midyanim, the war with the Midyanim that we were just discussing. It says there we learn about impurities relating to dead people. And there it says, Mikol klei ma'aseh. Now that's an added thing, any kli that's useful. So there you have, kol comes to include something. What must it include? Even something that has a bit of arig, a bit of jewelry, and those together, that works. That's also going to be susceptible to impurity. So but why are you learning from there to all types of tumah? That was in the battle with the Midyanim, where the whole issue was tumat mate. Now we all know that tumat mate, and this is going to come up also tomorrow, is more severe than tumat sheretz. Tumat mate is 7 days. You need the paraduma waters. It's a much more severe tumah. Why should we be learning from there? So to say that something is susceptible to impurity there wouldn't necessarily mean it's susceptible to all types of impurity. So what does he answer? Amarle gamar kli mehatam. Here it says kol kli maaseh, and it also says kli by the sheretz tumah, and therefore it says kol kli asher ya'aseh melacha, and therefore they learn that what's true for one is true for the other. And we're going to talk more about the gzera shavas between them tomorrow. Other gzera shavas between tumat meit and tumat sheretz, and that's where we're going to learn a lot of things. Because once you have a gzera shava, even if you have questions on it, like something doesn't make sense, well, the gzera shava holds, despite the fact that one might be more chamor than the other. Although tomorrow there's going to be a whole discussion. Does it really always hold? It depends what type of gzera shava you have. There's different types of gzera shavas. Some that the psukim are free to be darshaned, and some that the psukim are not exactly free to be darshaned. And there's all sorts of rules about it, and that we'll learn tomorrow. Shabbat shalom.